know what happens, but the great challenge is how do we describe and explain to people how to feel this and get it into their bodies. And so because I've been teaching yoga, I've come to the conclusion that there's not enough talk in the golf game about the planes of motion that the body work in. We don't want to get forced into the wrong plane at the wrong time. That's the problem with getting out of position in the golf swing. Has anybody ever suffered from swinging over the top or hitting slices?
Yeah.
It's what the biggest problem for most golfers is that they, you know, the people that come to see me, they have a tendency to swing into the sagittal plane. Okay, so it's basically the body wants to work in caveman mode, is what I say. It's like, you know, so. Hey guys, Christo Garcia, My Swing Evolution. What a wonderful last couple of weeks. Boy, have I been busy. Yeah. So after going to Marion and Winged Foot this last weekend, I spent a few days coaching the golf swing. And this last MSE intensive was really something spectacular. And that opening segment about the planes of the golf swing was a big part of what I'm teaching now as a part of my intensives. As I mentioned, you know, this is all, you know, the big picture just keeps on becoming clearer and clearer about what has to happen in the golf swing. You know, 2 participants came from England, 1 from Canada, a couple from San Francisco. So it's really, really an amazing thing that I get to share my theories about the golf swing with so many people from around the world. And, you know, I think that the big difference for me is that I'm not a natural. I had to rebuild my golf swing from the ground up. And several of the participants have seen the MSE golf system video. In fact, I've got several people that I'm working with that are really enamored of that golf system video, because for the first time in My Swing Evolution, it gives you a step-by-step process to rebuild your golf swing. So it's very important that you know the order of what you're practicing when you're working on rebuilding your golf swing. So one of the reasons Matthew Wolff's golf swing is so fascinating to me is because it's very unconventional, but it's very effective. And regardless of how you get there, you have to find the transverse plane on an inclined angle, basically under the pane of glass, like Ben Hogan said, in order to put the most force on the golf swing as you put the club in orbit around your center of gravity. Now, mixed up in all of this, if you have your wrist bone pointed at the target, this is probably the weakest part of the kinetic chain. So the club is going to be folding back, and you see that bow in the wrist. But the thing that's cool is it creates a whipping action with the club. So you're storing that energy to explode and be thrown to the target through the impact zone. So let's take a look at Matthew Wolff's super cool and highly effective golf swing. Hey guys, so let's take a look at one of the most interesting swings on the tour, the swing of Matthew Wolff. And I'll tell you, there's a number of very remarkable things about this swing, but the thing I'm going to talk about specifically is the weakness of his left-hand grip, and we're going to talk about his planes of motion, because it's pretty remarkable what he sets up and how he delivers the club head through the impact zone. All right, so let's take this back to the top. If we look right here, we're going to notice that Matthew Wolff has probably the weakest grip on tour. I'd say this is the weakest left-hand grip maybe since Ben Hogan. And, you know, it's pretty remarkable because the wrist is not nearly as strong as the core, shoulders, and arms. So to me, the wrist is actually working as a hinge rather than, it's not a power producer. It's just a hinge that's going to allow you to deliver the club head. So he's got this left hand wrapped underneath the club. This is pretty remarkable. And his right hand is pretty far over. If he squeezed his right hand tight, you'd probably see that thumb way over here. But he looks like he's got a little bit of softness in that right hand for right now. So what this weak left hand grip is going to do is it's going to allow him to pull the club, and it's going to work as a hinge. Now, obviously, the most remarkable thing about his swing, what we all see, is he's lifting the arms off of the body, creating width in the sagittal plane. That's the forward and backward in front of you plane. He's lifting that club in front of him. So he's going to be able to create as much space and leverage as he can in his golf swing. I love how he pivots into his back right leg and lifts his left heel. That's a totally classic golf swing move, and I just have an affinity for it. I found that the classic golf swing and releasing my lower body gave me a longer backswing and more time and space in my golf swing. I believe that the lack of time and space is what I suffered from, and probably most golfers who are struggling with their golf swing are suffering from a lack of time and space. So this big loop is allowing him to create space and give himself time, by lifting that left heel. So this is the great move right here in his transition. So as that knee kicks in, the arms are still rising, but at this point right here, we start to see the loop happen. I made a video called The Golden Loop many years ago where I show the looping of the club head underneath into the transverse plane. And through the years, this has become more and more evident to me, and my knowledge and understanding of it has deepened. So this is an extreme exaggeration, but it's very effective. So here, we're going to notice that the right arm, I talk about the right elbow under, I talk about the roll back, I talk about the karate chop, and I talk about the palm up cut. These are all elements of the same thing, which essentially is this. His rear arm, his trail arm, is going to internally rotate. Can we see his right elbow start to drive under? You can drive it, you can let it fall. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but without that, he's not going to be able to transition from the sagittal plane into the transverse plane. Now he's got that club flattened out, and it's working on much closer to essentially a 90-degree angle to his spine. Now you'll notice he has the Michael Jackson, just like I used to have. As soon as he starts to make that transition, that rear foot, the rear heel is going to come up. Right here we see. But he's still, Justin Thomas does it too, but his hips are so deep, he still is fine. He can get away with it. My hips were never deep enough, and since I was swinging into the sagittal plane, it just accentuated all of my swing problems. So here we see that he's able to work the club around his spine. It's like if he was a little bit, swinging at a ball, a couple feet higher, he'd look like a baseball player. And that's what we want. We want to use our body like that. And I'm going to make another point right here. He's actually got so much rotation, being able to work in this plane that about here, he runs out of room for his hips. His shoulders still have a long way to go, and the club head still has a long way to go. But he's going to begin to use vertical force off the ground, and his legs are going to press his hips upwards, but he keeps his head down. Now notice the left wrist that we talked about earlier. The left wrist is bowed under, like so many great golfers. We could talk about Lee Trevino, Ben Hogan, Dustin Johnson. But he's got the bow here as he's pulling the handle through the hit. Club is lagging behind. And that club is screaming down at that ball dead square. Now look at the left wrist as he gets to impact. That left wrist is totally turned under, still has flex in his left elbow. You see the softness in his left elbow right here? This is something that Mr. Hogan also had. And this gives the club, it's almost like a more of a slinging action, you know, where he can really whip the club through impact. Just amazing. Now, one thing you'll also notice is, you know, he's covering the ball a little bit more and doesn't have the degree of shoulder tilt that many other of the golfers that I study have. But he's really working very rotationally. Super cool to check out. His lead leg is straight. You know, he's essentially leveraging off the ground so hard. It's like he's jumping off of the ground, keeping his head down, making sure he makes a square impact, driving the club through the impact zone. And now we see the right arm start to straighten right down towards the target. So this is one of the coolest golf swings you're ever going to see. I mean, I just think it's dynamite. Now notice also the aggressive roll of the hands at this point. I mean, this is happening so fast. What I'm saying is, right here, there's no way that right hand is going to roll over the left. The right hand is working underneath. But in creating speed, it rolls over right there, and we get that nice long extension look that Mr. Hogan was known for. Now his shoulders, you'll notice that his shoulders get super duper steep. His shoulders are not steep at this point, but watch how steep they get in the follow through. And he has tons of lateral side bend right here. This is the coronal plane. You know, it reminds me again of Justin Thomas in that sense. He's got an interlocking grip. This is the popular grip now. It never was popular until Tiger Woods, and he really gave it life. So many of the top players are using this grip now, and it helps the two hands to feel united. And one of the funky things is, for me, it puts the bottom of my right hand on the club. When I overlap, that is not connected to the club. So it really gives you a strong feeling in the right hand to make that hit. So, guys, these are things to fool around with. I love fooling around with my golf swing, trying to work towards something I'm going to find that's going to make me a better golfer. And it's such a thrill to be able to watch golfers like Matthew Wolff hit the golf ball, because it's unconventional for sure, but it sure works, and I'm sure he's going to have a great career. So I hope you hit him long and hit him straight. Hi, I'm Christo Garcia, the founder of My Swing Evolution. A few years back, I picked up Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons book because I wanted to improve my golf game. Well, my golfing dreams came true. Today, I'm sponsored by the Ben Hogan Golf Company. I've shot under par many times, and I even had the chance to play Ben Hogan in a Golf Channel special. So in this series, I'm going to take you through the most important lessons that I learned from Ben Hogan's famous book.